What does a man get out of being a parent? What qualities are developed in a man when he becomes a husband and a father?
One would be responsibility, growing up, finding in someone else someone more important than himself. It's about rising to the occasion of the obligations of fatherhood, which may mean giving up the drink, the marijuana, the toys, the comic books or whatever it is that he's been into, and assuming and becoming needed.
So fatherhood matures men in a way that being single just can't.
Probably true, yeah.
So what do you see in the men now when they become divorced and are no longer allowed that role? What are some of the trends you see in the behavior?
Well, one trend is, rather shockingly, suicide. There's a very high trend of men who, following divorce, following the loss of a spouse for whatever reason, commit suicide. They find that no one needs them, no one wants them. They get cut off from essential elements of life, and the suicide rate is pretty shocking. Also, we see men floundering in lots of ways: alcoholism, criminality, living out on the street. 85% of the street homeless are male, and some 93% of the imprisoned are male.
So a lot of times it's because of loss of family. There's like a loss of direction.
That's part of it, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, men need children, and children need men.
So should men feel threatened if, say, they have a wife, they start out equal partners, and then she gets a raise or she gets, promotion or goes into a business and it becomes successful? Should a man feel like his future is threatened?
Well, perhaps, but when we're talking about a man, we're talking about an individual, and who knows what may be true for that individual. What I see are trends in the large scale, the bell curves, the norms, the trends, the tendencies. And on that basis, yes, I would say that men are threatened with some measure of obsolescence. I see an extraordinary number of articles. Do a Google search, just put men and obsolete together and watch what happens.
Wow, obsolete.
100,000 articles come popping up. It's amazing. And there's talk of male obsolescence with regard to sperm banks and with regard to reproduction technology, which has reached a point where there's talk about something called parthenogenesis, wherein a woman's egg would be split artificially and begin forming a clone right in her body.
That's scary.
No male involved. Or taking the genetic material from two eggs and combining them and creating an offspring, a different offspring, no male involved.
But I think one of the things that has to happen is that women have to recognize that there is more to a relationship than just a provider. And you talk about how we love women and we respect men and we respect that role that men have traditionally played. But why do you think it is that that role that women have traditionally played was not respected? Why wasn't the homemaker role respected? Why wasn't it looked at as something that was valued?
In my opinion, what's been going on is that the male role has been aggrandized in order to make it more appealing, in order to sell it on men. The military is, in virtually any objective measure, a place where men go to lose all power. They don't even have their most basic civil liberties. Soldiers do not rise up the chain of command by giving orders, they rise by following orders and following them to the letter. But you give a man a fancy uniform and some stripes and you tell him that it's an elite thing to be and to do, and you can get them to do anything. There's great stories about the submarine corps from World War I, where submarines were rickety things that just sank a lot, you know. They were known as floating coffins.
Oh.
And the men that went off on these missions almost always died. But they still signed up to be in that submarine corps because it was sold to them as an elite corps.
A high status thing. They could attract women.
High status thing they could attract women.
Yes.
So my feeling is that it's been a kind of societal bribe that it tells men that if you'll clean the sewers and dig the minerals out of mines and deal with war and deal with criminality and deal with the dark side of the world and human nature, we will aggrandize you as the so-called superior sex.
So now, what is your ultimate conclusion about the sexual politics of the future? Do you think that we made some mistakes with the whole feminist movement? We need to reverse some things, or do you think we need to keep going in that direction? And you know, what would it take for us to restore a balance and, as you say, create equity between the sexes?
Well, primarily, I would say what we need is a short-term masculist movement that would be just like the feminist movement in terms of raising awareness and educating. I think we need a temporary stopgap measure on that to try and balance out the belief system. And then I would advocate being rid of both feminism and masculism and going with something that would probably best be called
Humanism?
I would go with humanism, except that it's been taken.
Yeah,
See,
somebody already defined that.
Yeah, so equitist movement, gender transition movement, something like that.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.